I'm going to tell you a little bit about my career journey to date, which is an unusual thing because I still don't know if I've found where I want to end up or anything like that. Much along with the theme with everybody else, I feel like I'm still finding my feet and figuring out what's going on. But it was a really nice thing to do, to sort of look back and reflect on the past number of years since I left college and what's been going on since then. Of course, I'm a music nerd, so how else am I going to design this only by choosing 5 songs as little theme to talk about different parts of my life and different moments. So please bear with me. The one sad thing is that I don't have time to play you these songs, but I did go ahead and make a Spotify list, so if anyone's really interested, there's a Spotify list there that I can link you up to. Okay, so the first song is Somewhere from West Side Story. So this song relates to my very earliest childhood memory, which is of being in my grandparents' kitchen with my sister, who's here, and being absolutely glued to the television set that was placed on top of the fridge, and taping West Side Story and other musicals that were mentioned today, like Mary Poppins and The Wizard of Oz, taping them off the telly and watching them back and like rewinding them so much that the tapes nearly kind of wound out. Completely obsessed with musicals, with songs, especially with that sort of audio-visual relationship of people immersing in this complete other fantasy world, but also in the more realistic musicals as well, the more recent musicals. This is something that always interested me. And the ability for songs to tell stories and act as these really important connectors to people and places and memories. And this sort of came about in another strange way, because when I moved from County Wexford, where I grew up, to Cork to do my degree in UCC. The very first thing I did when I moved to the city, because I didn't know it at all, was to sort of find my way around and go into the local record store. And I visited Plug Records, which is a lovely independent record shop in Cork. And the first record I bought was Tom Waits' Blue Valentine, which, if anybody here knows this particular record, the very last track on this is Somewhere from West Side Story. So it sort of had this lovely narrative arc of being a song that defined my childhood in many ways, but then also went on to define a lot of my early years in college. And with a little soundtrack, I ended up playing in a Tom Waits cover band every Monday night in the Sinead for a weird while, along with many other weird musical pursuits that I ended up doing. I studied a BA, first of all, in arts, an arts degree in music and in history of art. I loved it so much and totally fell in love with Cork that I ended up staying, and Cork is still kind of home now, even though I'm working a bit all over the place at the moment. This brings me to the next point. So a slightly different song, Johnny Cash, Folsom Prison Blues. I hope some of you will know it. During my master's that I ended up staying in Cork for, in music and cultural history, I got really interested in the role of music in other parts of life, in parts of life that are very often overlooked in the research. I was often interested in the musical lives of people in other parts of the world, but also everyday practices that maybe go unnoticed. There was lots of gaps in the literature, lots of music that I was really interested in, wasn't written about, but also lots of experiences that I was noticing and trends that were happening in the world weren't being written about either, for obvious reasons. It takes a long time for academia and publishing books to catch up with newest trends like YouTube, for example. So during my master's, I ended up stumbling upon this video, this 2007 YouTube video that featured 1,500 Filipino prisoners dancing to Michael Jackson's Thriller. And I was completely just like my mind was blown by this video. It was still in the early enough days of YouTube, so we weren't completely immersed in this video era of just watching videos every day like we do now. But there were still this still stood out to me as being a particularly unusual practice. How do you make 1,500 people dance to pop songs in a prison in the other side of the world? So this kind of made me really curious, and I'm a really nosy person, so I kind of decided this had to be looked at a little bit more. I ended up writing an application to study a PhD in Liverpool based on the premise of investigating the use of music in prisons in a contemporary kind of spectre. And then that was luckily enough funded by a 4-year scholarship at the university in the Institute of Popular Music, which is the oldest popular music institute in the world. And they have an amazing team of really, really well-renowned scholars and audiovisual and film theorists, post-colonial theorists, loads of people who are working with them. Really, really interesting projects. And they took this on and took a risk on me doing this really unusual music project and supported it wholeheartedly. I ended up spending a sort of 6-month semester over in the Philippines to do field research for this project, which included a spell in jail as well, in the prison, doing quite a bit of interviews and ethnography with the prisoners. And here is just one photo from that, to investigate the role of music in this contemporary prison setting. It was new research. There hadn't been anything else like this to follow the mold on, so I had to sort of really develop a new framework and develop a new theory to draw from, because it was combining an awful lot of different elements from music, from criminology and penal studies, as well as YouTube and new media theory. So there was a lot of different areas coming into the play. I loved it, absolutely loved it, and I ended up doing a lot of work with a group in Germany who researched the role of music in detention historically. So there was a lot of people looking at instances of music being used in concentration camps in the Soviet Gulag, in all kinds of different forms, including recent practices in the US, such as music being used on inmates in Guantanamo Bay in the war against terror. Lots of things that you hear about in the media, but everybody sort of dismisses instantly as a joke. Things like playing Britney Spears to prisoners on loudspeakers as a form of torture. So myself and this research group at the University of Göttingen, we researched a lot of this and we put together some publications, which is still an ongoing project. But ultimately my interests were always in connecting the sonic to the social. What are the conditions that make it possible for certain sounds and for certain musical practices to be made? And so this sort of always was a theme that went through all of the research that I've done since my PhD. For the last 12 months, the songs here, sorry. The 2 songs, this is a bit of a tie, it's a bit of a cheat because there's two songs here. So we have Raglan Road, Luke Kelly, and we have Penny Lane by the Beatles. So this sort of represents the last job that I was doing, which was based in Dublin City University and St. Patrick's College. And it was a lovely 12-month project, a postdoctoral project, working with John O'Flynn, the head of music there, and the project was funded by Fáilte Ireland, and they were interested in our ideas on making a contemporary map of music in Dublin, particularly with a focus on popular music, because it had never really been done, and for a city that is so well known for its musical output internationally, very, very little has been written about it in any kind of serious way. So we went about this by doing a really ethnographic, hands-on project. We used lots of really interesting methods, like mapping workshop. We got members of the public in on culture night and during different music festivals like Hard Working Class Heroes to make their own musical maps. And then we spent hours and days and weeks analysing all of this data, including lots of survey data and questionnaires and feedback and focus groups and interviews. So now we're still in the process of finishing up the final result of that particular project. We also got to go to lots of shows, hear lots of new bands. So it was a really nice way of doing research for a year. Kind of exhausting as well, but really, really nice. And they're just some of the kind of little maps that people made for us over the course of the 6 months or so that we were collecting data. But then this also relates to some research that I was doing when I was in Liverpool during my PhD as well. I was involved in some music tourism research that was happening there. Obviously, Liverpool has a really famous Beatles heritage that's become really, really popular now. It's a huge industry. It's worth £90 billion a year and growing. And while we maybe don't have the Beatles in Dublin, we do have an awful lot of other acts that are very well known and that actually draw huge crowds internationally to come to the city. So part of it's about linking these kind of other international case studies and seeing what we can do in Dublin or what we can do in Ireland, maybe in a little bit of a better or more systematic way. And this is just another example of the kind of thing you see going on a lot. And the current job that I do now in Liverpool that I just started 3 weeks ago, which is why I can't remember my passwords to anything at the moment, is working in the Institute of Popular Music. So I'm back there again for a really lovely project on their archive. They had this wonderful popular music archive, which is completely unfunded and has really very little organisation going on to it. There's one basement room that is just wall-to-wall, full of vinyl and records and reel-to-reel tapes and shellacs and all these beautiful old formats. And then there's another room like this, which is just full of about 1,000 of these giant boxes everywhere. And we're trying to apply for funding to actually organize all of these amazing resources, because there's some fantastic things in there that have never been made public. There's recordings taken by people in the 1940s and 50s off wireless radio broadcasts that have never been aired publicly. There's unheard studio sessions with the Beatles, with Sonic Youth, with the La's, all kinds of things that are there that we just don't have the resources to do anything with at the moment. So it's a really, really exciting project, and we're putting together some exhibitions. We're putting together, at the moment, this was yesterday, I was in the BBC Radio Merseyside show, putting together a program, pulling out items from the archive to talk about it as well, to try and raise more awareness. We're here looking at a little acetate shell, no, that's a shellac disc there. So we're talking about the kind of meaning of format and all of these different memories that are associated with the tangible musical objects. So all of this then kind of relates to another strand of research that I'm involved in too. So it's a little bit to do with music tourism, but it's about the kind of relationship between music and place. So one of my big interests was Björk. When I was in college, I was a really big fan of hers, and this song in particular, Yoga, was a song that I loved an awful lot, and I still do. And I actually ended up a couple of years ago getting a visiting lectureship at the university in Iceland, in the music department at the Iceland Academy of Arts. So I was teaching some new courses on popular music and new media there. And it's been a really nice relationship. I'm actually going back over very soon again to teach for another semester there. But it's part of the research that I'm doing while I'm there, as well as teaching, is to do with music tourism and policy. So Iceland have a really interesting way of promoting their artists and promoting their culture. They took a completely different approach to the Irish kind of economic crisis, as many of you will know, and they actually put a lot of money into promoting their cultural events, and it's worked out really, really well, because their tourism industry is obviously so dependent on the weather, so they need something else for tourists to do when they're there, and that is culture. So they have a really well-known international reputation for music. And it's one of the things I'm quite interested in too. And that's actually me at a glacier in the corner there as well. And then lastly, I don't know how I'm doing for time, but anyway, the last track I've chosen is This Must Be the Place, Naive Melody by Talking Heads. One of my favorite songs, and very important to me for a number of reasons, but I suppose it's just about where I am now, or where I want to be eventually, and that is at home. I want to be home here in Ireland, and I want to be, being part of this economy here, because this is, and this culture and this industry, because this is my home. And the first line of this song is "Home is where I want to be," and this is also mirrored for anyone who knows Irish Sign Language. This is home. So this is a project that I was involved in, and it touches in with some of what Tracy was talking about using your time, your free time. We do get days off, and there is time. We all talk about being busy, but I used my annual leave from my job last year, a week of it, to work in this particular initiative, which is in Cork. It was run by a group called Art. I can never get it right, Art, Life, Culture, or Art, Culture, Life, one of those. And it's a project called Summer, Sing and Sign. So it was bringing 300 children into a free music program that was run in July in loads of different locations all across the city. This particular workshop was in the library, and it was working with Cork Deaf Association as well, because it's very much about being really inclusive, and why shouldn't children who are hard of hearing or deaf why should they not have access to music and to singing as well? So it was a huge success, amazing for seeing just how innovative and how quick children are to learn sign language. They're so much quicker than I am. And just another example of something I'm really interested in, there's similar wonderful programs happening at the moment with Music Generation. I'm also involved with a program in Limerick with the Irish Chamber Orchestra, and called Sing Out with Strings, so a similar kind of music community-based project. So it's a really interesting time to be part of this in Ireland, and there is increasingly more money going into the arts, which is a wonderfully positive time, a sign. Last, because I'm a sucker for hidden tracks and for bonus tracks as well. One last little nugget is this song by Faces, and the chorus goes, "I wish that I knew what I know now when I was younger." Anyone who knows the song can hear Rod Stewart's voice singing it. Sorry for the picture of him there. But basically, if I was to impart anything onto people who are thinking about going into the line or the precarious work of academia or research, it would be that just apply for everything. Don't ever let the application process put you off. If I think back to the number of times I didn't apply for things because I was either put off by the length of the form or the odds not being very good for funding or for whatever, I would have never done anything. There is never enough money out there to do anything, but there's a lot of goodwill and there's a lot of opportunity. So just apply for everything, and eventually something will be accepted, and you can find and create your own areas of specialism as well. So I think that's probably all I have to say. Thank you.